The year is 2024, and this is what the internet would lead you to believe is what happens when you try to play ARMS. Every couple of months, a video will pop up on my YouTube feed along the lines of ARMS deserve better, or does anyone remember ARMS? Or what happened to ARMS? Or the eSport Nintendo abandoned. What happened to ARMS? And I just have to think to myself, it's my turn now, and I've got some facts to preach. Y'all are insane because Nintendo never actually abandoned ARMS. So okay, hear me out. What exactly do we consider abandoned? Like, are we talking it's no longer mentioned on their social media, they didn't deliver the content that was expected, no one's playing it anymore? Because if that's it, I want you to check again, because that ain't your ARMS. That's Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. But on the real, I feel like Nintendo is pretty upfront with how much support to expect from ARMS. On May 17th, 2017, 1 month before the game launched, Nintendo put out this tweet. ARMS will continue to offer free updates with new fighters, stages, and ARMS after the game launches. That's kinda vague, right? So we're getting new fighters, stages, and ARMS, but for how long? From the get-go, we can get the vibe that we're getting a little bit of support, but we're kind of walking on eggshells here. This could either be fantastic or incredibly short-lived. However, a few months back, we had already received another sign from Nintendo that ARMS wouldn't be in it for the long haul. That's right, baby! Splatoon 2 is on the way and is releasing 2 months after ARMS so that way it can never have legs. Yay. I think one of my favorite things is whenever people end up saying that Splatoon 2 was the death knell for ARMS, and just like how no one is playing Splatoon 2 anymore after Splatoon 3 release, or how everyone stopped playing Splatoon 1 right after Splatoon 2 released. Okay, so yeah, no one's really playing Splatoon 1 officially anymore, but that's because Nintendo did actually abandon the whole ass Wii U as a console. So I actually really like Splatoon as a comparison to ARMS. These are both Nintendo's 2 big new multiplayer IPs, and when I looked closely enough, it was really evident to me that Nintendo followed the same post-launch playbook that they had for Splatoon when they released ARMS. So check it. Overall, ARMS ended up having about 6 months of post-release content, going from the day of release of June 17th, 2017, all the way to December 21st, 2017, and this is what we got. 5 new fighters, Max Brass, Lollipop, Misango, Springtron, and Dr. Coil, each paired with their own new stages. We got a total of 12 new ARMS, a badge system somewhat similar to achievements in other games, Party Crashes, which were ARMS' version of Splatfest, a monthly online event where players would have a choice between 2 characters and you just duke it out to make your team win. Between November 2017 and April 2020, there were 31 of these, a proper tournament mode that unlocked all ARMS for use in local play to make running local tournaments easier, a replay mode for reviewing previous matches so you could get your sick wins recorded later when you had time, 1 new game mode, Headlock Scramble, where you get to play as this guy and beat up 3 people at once. It's pretty cool. Let's look at Splatoon 1 though. We aren't going to look at support for Splatoon 2 or 3 because we're just looking at how Nintendo decided on a winning playbook and strategy for a totally new IP. Splatoon 2 and 3 didn't really have to prove themselves like their Wii U start did. Splatoon 1 released on May 28th, 2015, and it stopped receiving content updates November 13th, 2015. 6 months of planned support. And to think they only announced updates throughout summer 2015. But then, there was a plot twist. Splatoon was selling so well, and the Wii U was selling so not well, Nintendo threw the Hail Mary and announced more content updates for Splatoon up until June 2016, totaling 13 months of new content. In that time, Splatoon ended up receiving 11 new stages, 59 new weapons, local multiplayer along with 2 new online modes to make playing with friends online and offline easier, as well as better enabling offline tournaments, 2 new ranked game modes, Rainmaker and Tower Control, amiibo support for the new Callie and Marie amiibo, and it's also worth noting that in that time, Splatoon received 16 of the Splatfests that I mentioned earlier. Taking a look at this list, it's really easy to see how similar the support for the two games are, but let's have a little chat. Did you really think that I was just going to list out numbers that made Splatoon look better and leave it at that? Both of these games take a really similar approach to these content releases in one other aspect. For some of this content, all the data you needed for these updates were already in the game. Nintendo just needed to flip a switch to turn it on without making you download an update for either game at any time. One example of these is stages in Splatoon. At least 2 of the stages added post-release were already on the disc. They just needed to be turned on, really similar to the Sparring Ring and Sky Arena stages in ARMS. Doing this actually makes a lot of sense because it allows the developers of the game to have a little bit of a buffer to develop new content while still being able to release a steady cadence of updates to keep players engaged. So if we adjust the numbers to take that fact into effect, we're looking at 9 stages added in Splatoon post-release and 3 for ARMS. That's not even the only category on here that Nintendo did that with, because they did it with the weapons in both games too. For Splatoon, 42 of the added weapons were already on the disc, leaving 17 to be added in updates. As for ARMS, Max Brass and his signature arms were already in the game at launch, ready and waiting, so we're down to 4 characters and 9 new arms there. The same thing goes for the ranked modes in Splatoon, just so you know. They were there, waiting, watching, ready to be played at any time. So those lists are looking pretty similar now, eh? Nintendo never abandoned ARMS. They gave it the same fair shake at life that they gave Splatoon, down to playing content support, free pre-release test demos, and free weekend events. Hell, they actually gave ARMS a huge up on Splatoon when they hosted a total of 12 tournaments between both North America and Japan up until April 2020, compared to Splatoon's 4 total official tournaments between 2015 and 2017. Sure, Splatoon evolved into Splatoon 2 on the Nintendo Switch, and Smash Bros. Ultimate released with Inklings as a playable fighter. In comparison, we eventually got Min Min in Smash as a DLC fighter, and we still don't have the longly anticipated sequel to ARMS, 2 ARMS 2 Furious on the Nintendo Switch. And we all really want that. And we should have it. ARMS, as a brand new IP, sold better than even some of Nintendo's more established IPs, sitting pretty in the top 50 of the Nintendo Switch's best-selling titles at 2.7 million units as of December 2022, above games that do have sequels like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and WarioWare get it together. But does Nintendo need that? The answer is no, they don't. Nintendo didn't release Splatoon 2 a few months after ARMS in order to handicap ARMS. They did it to avoid making the same mistakes they made with the Wii U, not having enough games, not having a small user base that would discourage other developers and larger publishers from putting their games on the Switch. Making sure the Switch wasn't a failure like the Wii U was financially the incentive. We'll get an ARMS too, it just won't be on the Switch, because it doesn't need to be. Splatoon 2 was never the game that actually killed ARMS. Splatoon 2 was the insurance policy to make sure that ARMS could run. So why, as a community, do we blame Nintendo for abandoning ARMS? Because can you really look at me and tell me that they did? Yeah, Nintendo isn't updating the game, and they aren't running major tournaments anymore. But since when was it ever on Nintendo to run the community? Was Nintendo helping the Smash Bros. Melee scene grow, or were they trying to actively make it harder to play until they just stopped caring? When was making sure the community thrived long after Nintendo stopped the updates that they promised and fulfilled on them? The biggest sin Nintendo ever committed was not adding the tournament mode sooner. Tournament organizers having to take the time to unlock every single ARM individually, twice, on every single setup was the biggest obstacle that stood in ARMS' way because of how much of a time sink it actually required. And eventually that obstacle was gone, but by that point we had already walked away. After we got what we needed, we never bothered coming back. ARMS dying as a game in the FGC circuit isn't on Nintendo. The ARMS community being in a fractured, rabid, and dwindling state isn't on Nintendo. Rebuilding that community and giving ARMS the respect it deserves is not and will never be on Nintendo. We say that Nintendo abandoned and forgot ARMS because it's better than the harsh reality. It was never Nintendo. It was us. We abandoned ARMS. And we have the opportunity today to either work together to build up the ARMS community to what it could be, just as the Smash scene built up Melee to the giant it is today. If we don't do that when we are given an ARMS 2 on Nintendo's next console, we have to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes and kill it again. That isn't up to Nintendo. That's always going to be up to us. Hey there, so it's me editing Brett from the future, or I guess the past, depending on when you actually watch this video. I guess, well, relative to me recording this, it is the past, but at the time it was... Anyway, so I just wanted to pop in here and really thank everybody for listening to my thoughts on this game that I think actually deserves way more love and attention that it gets in, like, not just like the general population of gamers, but really like the fighting game community as a whole. So thank you. But if you know, you want to help me see that all the way through, because I want to do what I can for the game, but I kind of can't. Content's not really paying the bills yet. You know, feel free to drop me like a little like or a subscribe down there. It would really be appreciated and go a long way to getting us there. I'll see you at the Grand Prix. That's a promise.